They say all politics is local. We say you have to be loco to go into politics. Of all the towns in the United States, not too many are more eclectic, more diverse, and more successful than a small town called Costa Mesa, located in the heart of Orange County, California. The city has earned the bragging rights to be known as the City of the Arts, and also is the location of the most successful shopping mall in the country. Over the past 8 years, the City Council has taken on a number of tough issues to remain solvent and has dealt with chronic problems few other cities have dared to address, attracting the attention of the entire country. This includes issues like crime, homelessness, sober living homes, demanding employee unions, and a crushing unfunded liability of nearly $250 million. Dealing with these problems has split the city into two opposing forces. Those that want to take a hardline stance but grow, build, and modernize, and those that want to help those in need, fund the liabilities, and slow down growth to preserve the hometown feel they've come to know and love. The battle lines have been drawn, and everywhere it is felt. We are now in election season, and things have come to a boil. Enter longtime resident John Stevens, family man and litigation attorney. He says he can unite the city and fix many of the city's problems. With his many years dealing with issues in the courtroom, he feels he has a unique ability to reduce the hostility in the city and repair relations between the public safety organizations and City Council. His low-key, soft approach to matters may be just what the city needs at this important time in its history. We were skeptical if anyone could do this. We were surprised to learn, just maybe, he can.
So I hear you're a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
Give me a brief history of John Stevens of Costa Mesa.
Well, my first time that I was in Costa Mesa was when I was in law school. I went to UC Davis Law School, and I got a job as a summer clerk for a firm called Paul Hastings, which is on Town Center Drive, right off of Bristol. I got a job there. I worked there for 9 years. So when I came down to Costa Mesa, I started in the Cape Apartments over by South Coast Metro. Then we bought a house in Mesa Del Mar. My wife Amy and I had 3 children, Tommy, Nate, and Carolyn, and then we outgrew the house. So we moved to Mesa Verde, and then we had our daughter, Olivia.
Now, your law firm, it works in business law?
Business litigation.
Business litigation. Okay, so how can this benefit Costa Mesa if you were on the city council?
Well, you know, almost all of my cases involve some dispute, and we've had a lot of disputes in Costa Mesa, a lot of lawsuits. And I think what I can do, what I can bring to the table that a lot of other candidates can't, is the ability to know the law, understand the law, and understand kind of the practical realities of a lawsuit and what you can and can't solve in civil court.
Now, in 2012, you ran against Gary Monahan, and it was a very close race, but you lost. What do you contribute that loss to?
Oh, well, you know, it was my first time. And nobody knew me except for people that were doing Little League or St. John the Baptist. And so now I have a higher profile, and I'm hitting the ground running a lot earlier. Last time I didn't announce or do anything with my campaign until about July 4th. So this time we're getting started earlier. We're going to work harder. We've learned from our mistakes, and I think we'll have a great chance of victory this time.
Yeah, you said you're more high profile now. Is that because you served on the city's pension oversight committee?
That's one of the things I've done. But I mean, I just think getting your name out there by the pension oversight committee, which, you know, a lot of people didn't come to our meetings, I must say. But just running in 2012, I think gave me a higher.
So if people weren't coming to the meetings, but everyone's saying there is a pension problem in Costa Mesa, working on the pension oversight committee, is that what you found? Is there a problem?
Well, I mean, we owe $217 million in underfunded pension liability, so I think that's a serious issue. There are certain things that a city council can do about that, and there's a lot of things that they can't that has to be dealt with on the state level. In Costa Mesa, I've identified about 4 things that can and should be done. We should, if we can afford it, and we can, I think, at least we could when I was on the Pension Oversight Committee, we should pay our obligation in advance. That saves us about $1 million a year. We should pay down the fire side fund, where we own currently $26 million, and that accrues interest at 7.5%. We should negotiate the highest contribution rate among the employees, and also, if we can afford it, we should try to pay down the underfunded liability early.
I like that you say if we could afford it. Now, what's your platform you're running on?
My biggest platform is public safety. Crime is up in Costa Mesa, and our police force has been down. Our police force has been, we've had as few as 100 active police officers, and that's way too few for a city of our size. We have a lot of challenges with public safety. We have sober living homes, homelessness. There's all kinds of heroin issues that are going on in our city that we need to address. So I think we need to ramp up the police force and change kind of what I'll call the climate of hostility that's existed in Costa Mesa toward the police department by the city council majority over the last 5 years. Also the fire. Fire is down. There are firefighters in Costa Mesa that are working as many as 4,500 hours a year. A lot of overtime being spent. We should definitely not close Station 6 over by the South Coast Plaza. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. My biggest platform is public safety.
How will that affect the current pension problem?
Well, obviously if you hire an employee, there's a pension burden that goes along with that. But we have to have a safe city. That's the most important thing. We can manage the pension issue over time. It's a long-term thing that should be managed. But if we don't have a safe city, then we're not dealing with the problems that we have now.
Okay, most everyone contributes the extreme rise in crime. What has it been, 40-something percent? They contribute it to Prop 47 or AB 109. As a council member, are you able to overcome those two obstacles?
Well, Prop 47 and AB 109 is an issue. And of course, we have other issues in Costa Mesa that are maybe not unique, but important in Costa Mesa. The sober living homes. We have, as you may know, we have 3% of the Orange County population and over 25% of the sober living homes in Orange County. That contributes to crime. We have a 45% increase in homelessness. That contributes to crime. So the point is, with all of those factors coming together and crime going up, we have to fortify our police force. And nobody really disagrees with that. The question is, how did it get to where it is now, and how are we going to right the ship?
And what's your plans for the sober living homes?
Everything comes back to public safety. So it has to do with enforcement. I think what we should do, and it's not like we're doing nothing about sober living homes. They passed an ordinance. There's been some progress, but I think we should have some type of a task force that cuts across the police and code enforcement to really go after the bad actors among the sober living homes. There could be good people and good businesses in sober living homes, but it's the bad actors that we need to focus on, the ones that are causing problems for their neighbors.
What about the motels in Costa Mesa? Are they contributing to the crime as well?
Well, there's a lot of crime that happens in the motels and a lot of calls. The issue that I have with that is it's a question of how are we going to deal with it. I mean, the city council majority now thinks that we should deal with the motels as a land use or a zoning issue. I think it goes back to law enforcement. It's a law enforcement issue. So there have been some efforts recently. For example, there was an effort, a raid, if you will, on the Vagabond, which is over by In-N-Out on Geisler. And that was very successful. But when that was a few months ago, we need to continue to put pressure on the bad actors in the motels. It's not the motels themselves. It's not the structure that's the problem. It's the inhabitants. And so we should fortify our police force to deal with that.
The Daily Pilot quoted you as saying you are needed now more than you were in 2012. Why does Costa Mesa need you more in 2016 than they did 4 years ago?
Well, I think they needed me in 4 years ago, too, and unfortunately, because I lost by 155 votes, they didn't get me. We have a lot of the same problems, but a lot of the problems are worse. As I said, crime is up. Back in 2012, sober living homes, I was talking about it every once in a while in a backyard. Now it's a huge issue, especially on the east side and the west side. So I think we really need a candidate who's going to go in, a council member who's going to go in and say, I'm going to make public safety my #1 priority.
Now, you served on the board for Costa Mesans for Responsible Government, and this is the group behind the Smart Growth Initiative. How do you think your association with this group will affect your campaign?
Well, I hope I get their endorsement. I was one of the early members of Costa Mesans for Responsible Government. I think there's a lot of good people. The people in Costa Mesans for Responsible Government and the board that I dealt with really cares deeply about Costa Mesa. And so in listening to them and spending time with them and hearing their perspective, I think it gave me a better perspective, and I think I'll be a better candidate and a council member.
And do you support the Smart Growth Initiative?
Let's see, that's a tough one. I know the people who created the Smart Growth Initiative. They're my personal friends. And they have identified a serious problem in Costa Mesa. And what I'll call that is incompatible, high-density residential development. They went out and they got 7,000 signatures. I respect that. However, to be honest, I wasn't one of the proponents or the writers of the Smart Growth Initiative. So I'm going to let the folks that were the proponents go out and make their case for the Smart Growth Initiative. And I understand that there's a counter-argument, and I'm going to listen to that. So right now I'm kind of staying neutral. I'll tell you one thing, though. What we do need is a change in the council majority to address that problem that I identified, which is high-density, incompatible residential development in Costa Mesa, particularly on the west side.
Now, the opposition of the initiative, they question the legality of it. If the initiative is passed and the city takes it to court, do you think the courts will back it up?
I don't have a clue. I mean, as a lawyer, I would never hazard to guess. That is, if I've read that initiative, and it's a very carefully worded, but a very complicated initiative. And I don't have the first idea what the developers would say in if they were attacking that in relation to their particular problems. So I know enough as a lawyer to not prejudge those issues.
Now, there's also questions on its effects on the city budget. Do you think it'll improve or harm the budget?
Well, I don't know. If it would. It could go both ways. I mean, you know, the high density residential development that you see is going to cause stress on our infrastructure and going to cause more services. What the opponents say is that there are commercial developments that wouldn't come to our city because commercial developers would just decide to go to some other city. So that might reduce taxes. So the question is reduction of tax revenue versus a reduction in city services needed? It's hard to say how that will affect the budget in terms of the net.
Now, the most important question for all the candidates is, if you are elected, can you help unite the city council?
Oh yeah, no, I could. I could definitely do that. There's nobody even on the city council now. Even though I disagree with their positions, there's nobody on the city council I can't get along with. I hope that there's nobody in Costa Mesa I can't get along with. I really think that our city council and the city council chambers needs a serious dose of kindness. People need to treat each other better. On the dais, people that are in the chambers. I mean, there are times when our city council meetings look like an episode of the Jerry Springer Show. And it shouldn't be like that. We're all Costa Mesans. We all love our city. And we should be nicer to each other and kinder. And kindness is not weakness in my view. I could put that type of environment in the city council chambers. That I guarantee.
One of the most contentious issues in Costa Mesa right now is Fairview Park. What do you think of the Fairview Park initiative?
Well, I think that Fairview Park should be always kept natural. It's an unbelievable resource for a city like Costa Mesa, and a city that's completely built up to have an open space with the beautiful views in Fairview Park. And it should always be a passive, in my view, always be a passive, natural park. We should preserve those habitats. Now, I love youth sports. I've coached more youth sports teams than almost anybody over 19 years. Baseball, basketball, and softball. But we have 19 parks in Costa Mesa and a lot of different school district sites. We don't need active sports, youth sports use in Fairview Park. That should be kept natural forever, for generations, just like the generations before us have kept it natural for us.
So what are your feelings on, say, adding the wheelchair ramp or the parking lot lights?
Well, accessibility, limited accessibility while you're preserving the nature of the park within the master plan that has been created is fine. And in the Fairview Park Initiative, and I did walk that a bit around, the Fairview Park Initiative says you can't do anything outside of the master plan without a vote. And so I quite honestly don't know if there's ramps or handicap ramps and things of that nature in the master plan. But what I'm concerned about is not ramps. I'm concerned about Friday night lights, soccer, baseball, as much as I love it, in Fairview Park. That's the type of active use that I would definitely oppose.
What would you like to tell me about your competition?
Well, I'll tell you about my competition. Anybody who runs for city council, I have to respect them. And we just recently had an event for my campaign, and I told all my supporters, I said, you go out there and be respectful of the other people that are running and run a positive campaign, because I don't think you get any votes by trashing other people. Now, Sandy Guinness and I ran together in 2012, and of course she was the biggest vote getter, and I think she's done a terrific job on the city council, so I'll be endorsing her. Jay Humphrey, I walked a lot of shoe leather for Jay Humphrey in 2014, and he only lost by 47 votes, so I intend to do the same thing this year. So the three of us, to my knowledge, are going to, at least I'm going to endorse those two, and I hope they endorse me too. As for the other candidates, Al Malone I don't know very well, but I respect his commitment to the dog park. I think that that's a terrific issue, and I'd like to learn more about it from him. Who else do we have? Lee Ramos. He's like one of the sweetest men ever. I really like him as a person. I'm not going to endorse him. I don't think he's going to endorse me. But he's a long-term Costa Mesa resident. And you got to like a guy like that. And he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Julie Mercurio, I don't know at all. I'm a member of the Public Square, and she's involved in that. I just mostly read. I don't participate. I don't do a lot of comments. You're my Facebook friend. You know that most of my Facebook traffic is about me, working out, or things, birthdays of my kids, or birthdays of my wife, or my daughter getting down on a ground ball, those types of things. So I don't use Facebook for like a political outlet. So I don't know her, and I don't participate very actively on that page. But I'm sure I'll get to know her, and I look forward to that. And then who am I leaving out? Oh, Steve Menzinger. Steve's kind of Steve and I go way back, actually. Robin Menzinger, his wife, was my son Nathan's den mother. And so they used to have the Cub Scout meetings right at the Menzingers' house. And again, I get along fine with Steve personally. I have a lot of problems with some of the decisions he's made on the city council, but personally I think he's a fine guy. But he needs to be accountable. He needs to be accountable for the decisions that he's made. He's made them with his eyes wide open. He voted to cut the police force. He voted against providing transportation for the ambulances in Costa Mesa, our new ambulances. He voted to close Fire Station 6. he voted to send out pink slips to every employee at Costa Mesa. He needs to be held accountable for those decisions, which I think have been negative for our city. So even though I think he's a swell guy, I certainly wouldn't vote for Steve Menzinger, and I don't think my Costa Mesa brothers and sisters should.
You mentioned you don't use Facebook as a political outlet. A lot of politicians now are doing that. Are you worried that that might hurt your voter base?
Well, I have a Facebook page, and I'll put what I'll do is, I'm just getting started on this. I'll put my own positions on my Facebook page. And like in 2012, I'll try to populate that Facebook page so as many people read it as possible. What I meant is, what I don't do, and what I won't do, ever, during the campaign or when I'm on the council, is participate in the comment threads that go back and forth on Facebook. I won't do that. And the reason is if I have something I want to say to the citizens of Costa Mesa, I'm going to sit down and spend some time with it. I'm going to write an article or a commentary. I'm going to send it to the Daily Pilot, and then people are going to have a chance to read it. And it's something that I have thought out a long time. And I've done that many times. I mean, I've been published at least a dozen times on almost every issue of consequence in Costa Mesa in the Daily Pilot, and that's my style. So I don't get involved in the threads. Every once in a while, I'll weigh in, but it's always against my better judgment.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the people of Costa Mesa to help with their decision to vote for you?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. So I've spent 27 years in Costa Mesa. I've raised 4 children, almost. I've got 3 adults and 1 that's a freshman in high school. And I spent a lot of time in 2012 and since that meeting with and talking to people about Costa Mesa. And I've come up with what I think is a core value of Costa Mesa, and that is, and we talked about it earlier, how you grew up here. It's a generational type community. I've raised my kids here. I'm the first generation Costa Mesan in our family, but they'll come back and they may raise their kids here. And then they may raise their kids. That's not true in every city. That's not true in a city like Irvine, where you leave and then you go to wherever, and you don't hear that type of community loyalty in Irvine, and certainly not in the town that I grew up in. I grew up in a town called San Gabriel, and there are so many of my friends from San Gabriel High School that are living in Costa Mesa, quite honestly, and raising their family here. So when we look at that, why is that important? It's a core value of the city of Costa Mesa to have generation after generation, and we're just here as servants. We're here as servants and good stewards of the city to preserve the city, to preserve Fairview Park, to keep the other Costa Mesans safe. Should we have some progress? Absolutely. Things like the development up on above the freeway, the LA Times development, that's terrific. And in the main, almost every commercial development that's happened in Costa Mesa has been a home run, whether it's SoCo, South Coast Metro, of course, South Coast Plaza. Those types of developments are fine. But to change the entire character of the city to a high-density residential city, which I think in many cases is incompatible, that's something that concerns me. And also, of course, the safety aspect of it. When I see the police force being cut, the fire department being cut, and I see the effects that it has on crime, I have an issue with that. And I have to, as a citizen who loves the city, stand up and do something because I can, because I have the capacity to do it, I have the heart for it and the brain for it, and I would be good for Costa Mesa.